coming up on the Lead Ministry Podcast.
And I said, what you need to do is you need to kill both of these two things, cut your losses, and focus exclusively on this, which is what we should have done in the first place.
And now your host, Josh Denhart.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lead Ministry Podcast. We are in week 2 of a little mini series called Productivity 2.0. We are diving deep into the book of Proverbs and a really obscure passage where Solomon lays out some really foundational wisdom for how we can move ourselves forward. The reason we're calling it Productivity 2.0 is that we've all really tried, I would imagine, Productivity 1.0, which is this kind of Americana, move harder, go faster, stay up later, and somehow think that you're going to actually be more productive. And it's actually quite counterintuitive. It actually doesn't really work. And so this ancient wisdom of Solomon, it tends to win the day. So welcome back, Bill. Grateful that you're here, buddy.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, excited. And last time we talked about diligence. This time on the Lead Ministry Podcast, we're talking about yet another aspect. Again, we're talking about Productivity 2.0. A lot of this content is being gleaned from little portions of the Lead Productively course. It's a full-length course. It's like 40 videos, lots and lots and lots of downloadable resources to make life in ministry just that much easier. It's one of my favorite courses, quite honestly. I'm going to read this passage one more time from the book of Proverbs, chapter 30, verses 24 to 28. Again, a very obscure, bizarre passage that a lot of people who I have known have read the Bible through and through. They're like, I think I must have missed that one. I didn't pick that one up. Well, here it is. It says, Solomon reads, 4 things are small on the earth, but they are exceedingly wise. The ants are not a strong people, but they prepare their food in the summer. Rock badgers are not a mighty people, yet they make their houses in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet all of them go out in ranks. The lizard you may grasp with your hands, yet it's in kings' palaces. And so today we're going to focus on this idea of the rock badger. They're not a mighty people, and yet they make their houses in the rocks. Another translation says, rock badgers are not mighty folk. So last week we talked about diligence associated with the ant. This time we're talking about the badger and how the badger seems to have exclusive focus. And even though it's not a mighty people, it compensates by being ultra focused. We'll talk about that. So today is about the badger. Out of this random obscure passage, we're talking about focus. Well, if you've been a part of the podcast for any length of time, we love to, number 1, define it. Number 2, we're going to develop it, take it a little deeper. And then finally, we're going to provide some practical strategies for you to do it and be just that much more focused in your life. Okay, so let's define it. What is focus? It's directed attention. It is undistracted, directed attention. Focus. And now here's the interesting thing, Bill. Another quick definition is concentration on a singular thing. That's focus. Any thoughts from you before I go on? Because I have something interesting to kind of pop onto the screen here.
Yeah, I was just thinking how terrible I am at focus at times. But when you actually nail this, how powerful it can actually be.
It is like this idea of concentration on a singular thing. I think of I never did this as a kid, but I know people have. They take a magnifying glass and it actually takes the beams of the sun rays, it focuses them into this, it's almost like a laser beam. You can start a piece of paper on fire. You can scorch an ant. You can, you're concentrating all of the sun's energy in one micro spot. And when we do that, it's extraordinarily powerful.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about this. What's the opposite of focus? It's periphery. Focus is dialing in on one thing, and the opposite is scattered on the way outsides. And it's the periphery. focus is the one central thing that you need to focus on or you need to attack. And foolishly, I dilute myself and I don't have the power of all of the sunbeams coming through in one thing. I've got, obsessing stupidly on looking on Facebook. I have, farting around with some non-essential thing. And I can fart around with that later and I can look at Facebook. I'm not saying become like a bizarre focused monk. But what I am saying is there are times where I need to turn it all off, put all of my energies toward one thing and skirt out of the periphery. Any thoughts on this, my friend?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how it's actually so bad for our brains to be on the periphery side of things. It's like asking the question. You ever notice this with your kids when you were, when your kids were littler, especially when you're on the phone and, your kids could care less about you. And then you jump on the phone and they
really need you. Yeah.
They lose their minds and they're fighting with each other. And you get in those moments, for me at least, because maybe I'm not as sanctified as others, but in those moments I get so angry. I'm like, can you not see him on the phone? Come on. And it's like, why do we get so upset about that? Well, it's because we are trying to focus.
That's right.
On this important conversation or whatever is going on. And yet we have all of these distractions around us and they're constantly interrupting us. And that's kind of just like this, I guess a vision of how many of us are living our lives right now. We're sitting at our computers, and if you're not in focus mode, Mac actually has a focus mode that takes all of your notifications and puts them away. If you're not on that, you're constantly task switching from thing to thing to thing to thing, and you're like, why am I annoyed right now? It's because you're not focusing, because you're not actually dialed in to what you should be doing in the moment.
Can I be totally radical here? And everybody's gonna be like, what? Like, I have switched my phone. I've taken great pains. Like, I no longer have on my phone, I'm opening it up right now and looking at it. I no longer have any apps that notify me with, it's like Facebook. Why would I care? Why would I have a number 7? A big red 7 going, you got 7 things, you got 7 things. Though, not important. I stripped that away. I no longer have alerts for emails that pop up on my phone. I'm sure I'll get to it. I'm going to be going to the bathroom. Listen, it sounds terrible. I'm going to be going to the bathroom at some point. I'll check and see if I have any emails, right?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
So I have actually not just put it into focus mode. I'm like, hey, what if that was actually a part of my life? And so that's been interesting for me. Okay, so what does the Bible say about focus? Well, this obscure passage, it says this: rock badgers are not mighty people, and yet they make their houses in the rocks. Stick with me for a moment. Rock badgers are not fighters. And so they've had to biologically adapt to go, I'm not strong enough to fight, and so I'm going to position myself in a place of strength. And so they make their houses in the rocks. Now, again, if you're on YouTube, you're going to be able to see this wonderful little picture of a rock badger and its 2 young, I don't even know, what do you call them? We'll call them kids. I don't know what a rock badger's, it's whatever, right? It's not.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
They're kind of cute, actually. They don't look very ferocious at all.
That's it. They're not a mighty people, right? But somehow in this picture, they've made their house in the rocks. Okay. So watch this. What's the advantage there? Again, if you're watching on YouTube, they have 250 feet of solid rock above them, under them, to the right, to the left, and behind them. They only have one area of problem, and it is coming directly at them. Work with me for a second. Rock badgers are not so smart that they have no problems. They've just limited where the problems are going to come from. So they don't have problems to the left. They don't have problems they've hunkered themselves back in there like, okay, I only got one set of problems to worry about, and they're directly in front of me. That's it. That is genius. And that's why the rock badger is a small thing, but it's exceedingly wise. Now, the contrast to this is overexposure. You are overexposed. And in a business context or a family context, we say, oh, that person is financially overexposed. They have a lot of financial exposure. What does exposure mean? That means you're out from the rocks and you're literally out in the wide open and you're exposed. That does not feel comfortable at all.
No, there's too many variables.
Thank you. Speak to that.
Yeah, it's I kind of, when you were talking, I actually got this vision of, so we're looking at a picture. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening, we're looking at a picture of this rock badger that's standing in front of its cave, essentially.
Yes.
And I got this picture of a rock badger in the middle of a field. And I'm thinking about hawks flying all over the place, and I'm thinking about a bear coming along, and I'm thinking about snakes and all these different things. And just, hold those two images in your mind. Being in your cave and having one area that you have to focus on and defend versus you are getting, like
infinite. You have infinite
threats on all sides.
And you're completely indefensible.
Mm-hmm.
That is a terrible thing. I'm so glad you brought that up. I cannot wait to my next presentation of this. I'm going to somehow, maybe through AI, make a rock badger in an open field and put all of these dangers. It's not mighty. It can't defend against a snake. It's not going to do very well against an eagle. I guarantee you that. And a bear, kiss it off.
Yeah,
but the bear is not going to have a very good opportunity to stick its big old fat muzzle inside of this small cave. It's protected because it has the power of focus. Interesting, isn't it?
That is so interesting. Yeah.
So this is the idea of what I'm going to call yes versus no. A wonderful yes can predetermine the next 1,000 no's. Because hear me out real quick, Bill. We'll come back to that in just a second. Please understand what we're not talking about is us hunkering down in our homes so that we don't get accidentally hit by a car or a drone hits us on the head. We're not talking about our physical safety. We're talking about our ability to get stuff done and be productive. We're talking about productivity. And guess what? If I am diluted and I have like 85 things happening, I have problems from every single angle attacking me, and I don't really get anything done. But if I'm ultra focused, I still have problems, but at least they're limited, and I'm not completely exposed and being crushed by problems. And so the idea then is that if I say yes to the right thing, then automatically I'm saying no to 1,000 other things automatically. Does this make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. I do this actually every single day. And the way that I do it is I write down the 3 things that I accomplish. Well, I shouldn't say that. I write down the 1 to 3 things I accomplish.
Fair.
I want to accomplish that day. And it allows me to say yes to those things and say no to everything else. And when something comes up in my life that says, hey, we need you to do this, or we need you to do that. Well, listen, either no, or that's not going to happen until another time, because I've already set my 3 things. And these are the things that I have deemed are the most important. And they're always things that I look at. They're not urgent, but they're important enough that I need to move the needle forward in these things. Because if I do this, then I see success in all areas of my life.
Yeah. And if you could harken back to last episode, if you do those things, you're being kind to future Bill. Future Bill is going to thank you for sticking to those 3 things and not getting hijacked. And by the way, who do we get hijacked from? Well, it depends. If you are a person who is an absolute idea factory, you can hijack your own self with your undisciplined ideas. But often it's a hyper visionary leader who is insisting that we do yet another initiative. And what I want to say is, but we already said yes to this. Shouldn't that almost in a sense predetermine that we don't do that next thing? So we're going to talk about that. Here's what I want to say. Having a bias towards no allows you to automatically dismantle lesser opportunities, and opens the door for your greatest yes. I have a bias towards no. Listen, if you have any level of success in your life, Bill, people are going to be coming out of the woodwork telling you, hey, let me tell you what God's will is for your life. AKA, hey, let me hijack you to accomplish what I think that I need to do because you're a super diligent person and you get crap done. But I'm going to go, I'm like, no, I already have my 3 things that I'm going to do today. And the 4th is not your thing. I'm just not doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so
I love that.
Yeah. I have a bias towards no. And no is not wait, hang on. No is a negative word. Wait a minute. Stop. No is not but no is not a pejorative. No is not a put down. No is all of a sudden you're not a bad person. It's actually a very powerful phrase. How about this? This is Ministry 101 right here. Good things can become the enemy of the best thing. Now, this is what I'm getting ready to say. I have shared with thousands of young people in my life. Literally. And I remember one time I had a young guy who was super successful. He was going to do great things, but he had these decisions in front of him and they were very challenging. And he was overwhelmed by those decisions. And I said, okay, let's talk about this. I said, I want to let you know, here's what we don't have. We're not talking about cocaine binge. We're not talking about go to Vegas and blow every last dollar that you have or go serve at the soup kitchen. That is bad, and good. That's usually not what we're dealing with. We're often dealing with soup kitchen, a food bank, or write my sermon. This is good, best. I don't know. You're going to have to determine what the best thing is, but we really don't. It's not really that often that we have these like completely absurd choices. It's usually good things that are getting in the way of the best. And how much more so is this the case in a ministry context? Because there are so many good things that we can put our hands to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as leaders in a ministry, as you move on and as you mature in your leadership, like part of the key is determining what is best and what is good.
Yes.
Because you can kill yourself with good, but we are called to do best.
And guess what? I'm going to go back to our rock badger real quick because an interesting picture is now here we are again. If you're on YouTube, you can watch this. And I would encourage everyone who's listening, we do have a YouTube channel, and watch this. Now, instead of the blue arrows going out, showcasing that this rock badger is protected from the left, from the right, from above, from below, and from behind, guess what? Now we have good idea number 1. He steps out of the cave that he has. And guess what? Good idea number 1 has 15 different things that need to be addressed. The majority of leaders do not understand that good idea number 1 is going to take 15 different problems that got to be solved. Watch this. This is where it gets really bad. Good idea number 2 come crashing in from the left. And now you have 15 brand new problems. And now you're fighting a 2-front war. Not good. And then the fool just decides to go ahead and throw in idea number 3 and idea number 4, and you're now crushed. And not a single one of your ideas is going to come to any type of healthy fruition because leaders don't understand that every good idea, listen, man, I read in a very reliable source that we are going to earn our bread by the sweat of our brow and the thorns and the thistles are going to work against us. That's called the curse. Reliable source, the Bible, Genesis chapter 3. We are working against nature. Nature is opposing us. And so all of our good ideas, it's literally an uphill battle. And if you've got 4 different hills that you have to push a rock, you can't do it. So stay focused. Stay focused. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is so important in ministry. And actually, understanding this concept can help you advocate for yourself as a ministry leader to your superiors in a good way. Because as these ideas come up and people want you to accomplish ideas, you have to be able to accurately articulate to them look, I can do good idea 1, 2, 3, and 4, but that is actually going to prevent me from doing this great work that I'm doing here. So
that
you decide
that you assigned me 8 months ago, and we're making serious progress. But do you want to kill all of that progress to take on your new buzzword, to take on your new little like shiny object? Slow the roll, bro.
Yeah, I have to do this all the time. We're in the midst of this right now. There is kind of a push in our congregation, well, really with the leadership, that they keep saying, we want more content. You know, everyone wants more content, and content's awesome. Churches, we've talked about, you know, having a digital presence, and those things are super important. And I've constantly said, you know, that's great. If you want me to start a new weekly thing, I want you to know this is what it's going to take in order to maintain it you know, multiple seasons in a row. It is not just a one-off, start a show. That's the easy part. Launching something is the easy part.
So easy to start stuff. It's so much work to sustain stuff.
Yes. And so I have to have those conversations very often. And, you know, I'm the type of person, I want to do what my leaders want. You know, I'm not against it, but I can't sacrifice what we have that's great for a bunch of things that are mediocre.
And here's the thing. Here's what I say, and I have said innumerable times. I'm in a meeting and they're like, okay, bro, like you're really gifted. You're really good. Of anybody, you can crush this. And I'm like, oh, I'm excited. That'd be fun. I feel honored by that. And then I say, okay, now I see what you're telling me is a huge priority. Is that correct? And they're like, oh yeah, big priority. I go, okay, what of the other 5 things that you handed me recently do you want me to not do in order to fulfill on this? And then their eyes get really big and there's this awkward moment. And then I intelligently interrupt the pregnant pause and I say, I imagine you want them all done. Is that correct? And they're like, yeah, we want them all done. Okay, so I've created a system for these other 4 things that you handed me, and they're running really well. I'm going to need a 15-hour employee to run this thing over here that you handed me. I will now no longer need to touch it because I built a system. I will manage that person who will do it, and then I can put my energy over here. And they're like, ooh, okay. So all of a sudden people, I'm dead serious, Bill. Like I ended up with 7 full-time employees under me, full-time. Okay. Like people are like, how did you accomplish that? Well, I just gave you my strategy, right? I kill it at things, and I build a system diligently, and it's so simple now. It doesn't, the future forward energy has been greatly reduced. And so now I actually ask for another employee, or I say, hey, that 15-hour employee, you know, that person now needs to become 30 to 32 hours. And they're like, okay. We get it. We'll do it. And so then all of a sudden I get more people. I get more budget, right? And so it is a strategy and I have said to them, you know, is this really something you want to do? Which leads me to our next thing. Really hard. This is a toe stomper right here. Does your vision clarify opportunities, or do shiny objects constantly redefine your vision? So if your vision is cubbing, it is what it is, then all of a sudden shiny objects, they don't have any place. But shiny objects, all of a sudden, they can constantly redefine. Here's who we are. Oh, here's who we are. Wait, you're all over the place. This is the essence of periphery and not focus.
Right. If your vision is changing week to week, month to month, you don't actually have a good vision. You're saying you have a vision, but you're really just chasing shiny objects.
That's exactly right. In ministry leaders, this is like, I guarantee there's somebody out there in podcast land who is both furious and also they seem like they're seen. They're like, first of all, my church does this all the time. Thank you for noticing me and calling it out. Yeah. Ministry leader who's listening to this, guess what? This is a sad but good case of the normals. And we got to fight this. Okay, here comes story time. This one is super painful. Bill, I call this, maybe you should take birth control. That sounds
I can't wait. I can't wait.
That sounds provocative, doesn't it?
That's a viral title.
Yeah, maybe you should take birth control. Well, I got to be honest. Like, have you ever had those times, Bill, where you're sitting in a situation and something comes up and then like 4 hours later, you're like, man, that would have been the perfect thing to say. Have you ever had that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
This perfect thing came to me, and I am so grateful to God that I kept my ever-loving mouth shut. I would have gotten in so much trouble, but it was the perfect thing. Okay, so our church endeavored to create a community center across the street from our church. We had 35 acres. It was completely barren, and we built a 61,000 square foot community center. Okay, this is a honking community center. Multiple full court gyms, coffee house. It is a spread. And by the way, it was a gift from our church to the community. A gift. Our community had no community center. We gave this to our community. That's a honking thing. I mean, it was like $7 million. It was a massive endeavor. Okay, great. So we have this. We're going to call that child number one. And then a rich person at our church had a crappy building that he wanted to offload. I'm just being serious. That's all that it was. And so he decided to gift this crappy building on the east side. We live on the west side. The south side. He gave us a crappy south side building. And we're like, oh my word, maybe we can have 2 community centers. And then, I'm not kidding about this, a church went defunct and they gave us their church building. So now we had the community center, which literally just opened, and we were gifted 2 brand new buildings. And so the senior pastor, in a meeting, in a very uncharacteristically vulnerable moment, he said, okay, people, we have just given birth and we're pregnant with twins. What do we do? And so in my mind, I'm like, you need to get on birth control. Because
you didn't say that out loud?
I didn't. Thank God I didn't. But a truer statement could never have been shared. Because you already have a kid. You have no business saying yes to twins. You should have said no to this guy who gave the building. You should have said no to this person who gave you another church building. So guess what? We were unbelievably diluted. We spent serious money on this startup and on this startup, and they never came to anything. It was time that was just wasted. It was dollars that were wasted. It was staff people wasted when it all could have been focused on that main number one child. And that first child got neglected, I'm telling you.
Oof.
Get on birth control. If you don't have the capacity to say no, put systems in place that force you to not get pregnant with a new idea.
Yeah.
Oh, now
that's so good.
So, okay, I got to say, full circle. About 18 months later, the senior pastor had me solo in his office, and at an even more uncharacteristically vulnerable moment, he said, what are we supposed to do? And I said, what you need to do is you need to kill both of these 2 things, cut your losses, and focus exclusively on this, which is what we should have done in the first place. So in a sense, he had to, because he was still in vision mode 18 months earlier. We have a child, we're pregnant with twins. What do we do? Like, let's come up with a strategy to win. There was no strategy to win. And it took 18 months for him to realize we are spinning our wheels on these 2 ideas that were not dumb ideas. They were not dumb ideas. They were great ideas, but they couldn't be accomplished because we had another far more important thing. We were unbelievably diluted. So maybe, just maybe, get on birth control.
Yeah, I love that. You know, that's actually a story essentially of how sometimes opportunities can actually be curses and not blessings.
Oh my word. Can I just interrupt you and say this? I didn't put this into the slide deck, but People can die from an overdose of opportunity.
Yeah.
People can die from an overdose. Our organization was literally dying in some ways. You're like, well, we weren't really dying. No, actually, we were neglecting a child because we had 2 other children that we should never have given birth to.
Yeah.
Painful.
Absolutely.
Painful stuff.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on real quick and let's land this plane. Where to begin, right? The discipline of focus. Let's develop this. Here's 2 myths. Myth number 1 about focus. If a door opens, it's clearly God's will to walk through it. Not true. The reality is this: diligence and success will open doors. In other words, somebody's going to want to give you their crappy things for a tax write-off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we're going to see this as, well, clearly God is calling us to overextend ourselves. No, focus and discernment will tell me which ones to choose.
I love that.
Another myth, here it is. There is so much kingdom work to be done. We need to do more. No, because there's so much kingdom work, we must not become distracted and diluted. We have to stay focused.
You know, I just know that there's somebody out there listening to this and they have big opportunities ahead of them.
That's right.
And I think this podcast is going to bring them back to earth. Because I think this happens to us. This has happened to me all of the time. Like,
welcome to my life. Welcome to
yes, all of the time. And it takes a while to learn the discipline of saying no to really good opportunities.
Yeah.
Because we can't see the future, so we don't know how things are going to turn out. And if you're like me at all, and you have vision and you can dream, you look at good opportunities and you go, what if we could do this and this and this and this? And you just keep going with it. And that's why I think God is constantly telling us, hey, slow down for a second.
That's it.
Really count the cost for what is before you.
Does Jesus not say this? Only a fool gets halfway through the building and can't finish it. Everybody's like, what a ding dong. That's the JRV again, the Josh Revised version. Look at the ding dong. Because guess what? Count the cost. Can you fulfill on this? Can you actually complete this? And so don't take on 5 things.
Right. And I think your myths are so true that in essence, we like to spiritualize the opportunities before us.
That's right.
And we say like, oh, well, this got dropped on my lap, so this must be the next course of action. This must be what God has for me next. No, slow down. What has God actually called you to? What is your vision?
Yeah.
What is great for the vision? Not what is good, what is mediocre, what could happen, but what is great for the vision that God is calling you to. Focus on that.
Absolutely. And here's what I got to say. I think it comes down to this. Know your lane, stay in your lane. Mm-hmm. Know who you are and stay in it. Actually doing less, it actually achieves more. Doing less, this is so counterintuitive. This is why Solomon is so ripping smart and why he deems this small, insignificant, not mighty thing as dominant. The badger, it has focus. It does not have overexposure. It stays very, 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 very controlled. Watch this. Ministry is filled with too many good people chasing too many good things at the cost of their highest calling.
Amen.
And I got to say, Bill, I got to be completely transparent. I've learned my lesson. I have been headlong 47 miles down a road that I ought not have been on. And I'm like, gosh dang it, I did it again. You know?
I think all of us.
I think we have. I want to give permission to everybody out there that like it happens. But you know what? We're an interesting species in that we can think critically. And I don't have to be 47 miles. I can actually think ahead and go, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't think that leads me where I want to go. I think I'm going to say no to that. And that's extremely hard. And that is, of course, the essence of focus. So here we have, if you're on YouTube watching this, you got these 2 choices. You either have the protection of 250 feet of solid rock behind to your left, to your right, to your top, to your bottom, that's great news. Or you step out and you're being crushed from the left, crushed from the right, crushed from the top, crushed from the bottom, or you're in an open field with no cover whatsoever, and you now have danger from a hawk, from a wolf, from a snake, from a bear. None of those sound good. Those are all far more powerful than the badger. And the badger says, you know what? I ain't that mighty. You know what? I'm really not that mighty. I think a better choice is to live close to my cave of security.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
That's good stuff.
So
well, gang,
good.
This has been just yet another episode of the Lead Ministry Podcast. Fun times, man. Be focused, stay focused, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.